Cool, cool.
All right.
So you're talking to are you looking to buy a home then?
I'm looking to buy a condo,
Okay.
specifically a condo right now.
Why is that?
So I have a plan of like kind of like how I want to maneuver as far as like getting real estate and stuff. I want to buy a condo specifically because I want to rent my first property out. And if I have a condo, uh, while like you own that condo, the you don't necessarily own the property it's on. Like there's still like a property manager. There's usually like a corporation, private company, someone that owns and helps like facilitate, people buying the real estate. But with what comes with that, with like having like a property manager still is like maintenance. So you still have like maintenance amenities and stuff like that. So once I move into the condo and I rent it out and I go somewhere else and buy a home, it's not a hassle to like, help provide maintenance and like some type of like overwatch of the property without like traveling. Yeah, without traveling for every like inconvenience, like, hey, my toilet's not working. Call the property manager, hey, like who's the best plumber around? Y'all do this all the time, help me out. So I don't have to like keep, coming back and forth. So that's the main reason I'm getting a condo and I'm looking to a condo. And that's kind of like, that's it. I was going to buy a house because I've talked to a couple people because with the house, it comes with the land and that also adds to the value. But I don't think that's sustainable for me long term. As far as like, I kind of just want to, I don't want to like forget about the property, but I don't want to have to just, I don't want to be like at the, mercy of whoever's living there. And they're like, oh, this is messed up. This is whatever. So I'd rather like, kind of like, okay, well, we got somebody that can take care of it. Let me focus on what I'm.
So my wife and I work with a property management company on the home that we currently rent out in Bossier City. And property manage like you can have a property manager for anything. Like you can have a property manager for commercial real estate, you can have one for residential real estate, whatever. And there are two types of fee structures. One of them's a flat fee, and the other one's the percentage. So there's a guy. Do you know Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Robert Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad to sell a board game that he was trying to market, the cash flow game, cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And he was essentially spelling out why, if you own a house, it's a liability unless it makes you money. Like in the whole thesis of what he was communicating was people don't know the difference between liabilities and assets, and that's what keeps people poor. So
that's a good point.
He created the Rich Dad Company, which is like a financial education company where he like pulls in subject matter experts and he's like, hey, why haven't you written your book yet? Write a book on the topic that you're really good at. The guy who does property management, Ken McElroy, has his own educational YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Everything you want to know about property management, you can learn from Ken McElroy on YouTube.
Ken McElroy?
Ken McElroy.
Gotta put that in my phone.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, I can just show you. Ken McElroy.
Let me grab my computer charger real quick so I make sure my computer doesn't die while we're talking.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, back in business.
So this is Ken McElroy's YouTube channel. So his video from 3 days ago, where does your money go? Inside look at property management expenses. But what he also talks about is like real estate investment within the context of the current market. So you know what interest rates are doing right now?
They are going up significantly.
A little bit up. It's still pretty low compared to, I don't know, when I was a kid, my parents got a house for like a 7% mortgage rate.
Mhm.
Might have been shit. It might have even been like 8 or 9. And that was
Really?
fine. Like that was normal. The
Really?
past, yeah, oh yeah, the past 4 years, 5 years, where we've had like 2, 1, 3% interest rates, that is nowhere near the norm.
Wow.
Not even close. Used to be, you could leave your money in a bank and save it, and the interest that you would earn would be enough to justify leaving your money in the bank. That is not the case. And that's another point that Robert Kiyosaki makes in Rich Dad Poor Dad is savers or losers. So are you familiar with a term, the cost of money?
Not too familiar, no.
Okay, so if I go to a bank and I take a mortgage at $235,000 for 2.25%, what is the rate of inflation right now?
What do you say, like 8%, 8%?
Actually, we can look. We can look and see what the rate of inflation is.
I think we're on like a quarterly increase. We're going up like 0.5 or 1 basis point, you know?
So that does not necessarily affect inflation.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of interest rates. I'm sorry.
Inflation is the loss of purchasing power over time. And historically, the loss of purchasing power over time is somewhere like 2 to 4% per year. Like that's why a $60,000 home 50 years ago is like a $250,000 home today. You know?
Yeah,
so
it's wild. Yeah.
And when COVID hit, and for whatever reason, it's not going to pull it up. When COVID hit, dumping $4 trillion into the economy, like stopping the economy, and then dumping a shitload of money into it, jacked up the rate of inflation from where it was at like 5 or 6% to probably more like 15, 17%.
It's terrible. Like yeah.
You take a 2.65% interest rate and you decrease the purchasing power of that money by 17% that year. Let's say the rate of inflation goes down. Let's say it goes down 15%, 14%, 12%, 10% over the years, but you're still paying 2.65%. The debt that you have is losing value too. So the cost of money is so low at 2.65%, and the rate of inflation is so high that at a certain point in your payments back to the bank is actually paying you to borrow their money.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Because the purchasing power of that money has decreased so much, and what you are paying to use that money has decreased.
Yep.
and this is something that everybody should learn about. But unless you go out and read it or have somebody in your life that tells you about it, you would know.
You would know, like the authorized user.
Like the authorized user.
Did you look into that?
Haven't had a chance to yet.
It's a legit like crazy thing that people aren't familiar. Like so people know how to spend money on a credit card. They know how to increase their credit limits. They know how to add more credit lines. But then you don't know like how these other benefits added onto it. So like when I was telling you about the authorized user, it was like just so much more than that as far as like credit score and stuff.
Start out. Explain what the authorized user thing is.
So the authorized user is basically where you have a credit line, you have an open and active credit line that you're using. And what you would do is like, let's say, hey, you had this credit line for, I don't know, let's say a couch and a mattress that you bought. And you're paying it off. It's like simple, easy payments that you're able to make. You've been doing it consistently for a couple years. What you would do is you would basically say like, hey, who around me needs help with their credit? Like brother, sister, mom, dad, cousin, uncle. And son, what you would do, daughter. Son, daughter. So what you would do is you would be like, hey, I can foresee me in the future using this credit line, or at least keeping it, not abandoning it, whether I pay it off or in the near future or not. I'm going to keep making the payments. So you don't see like, okay, this might be a struggle in the future. Mm-hmm. What you would do is you would add the person that's like, hey, I'd like to be on that credit line. What it would do is it basically puts them on that credit line as an authorized user. And a side effect of that is that they absorb some of that credit history and also just like the general like, I'm making payments too. It's not really them.
Credit worthiness.
Yeah, it gives them credit worthiness. And depending on like how long you have them on there and how long you've had that credit line will depend on like how much benefit they will get. And in general, once you add them on a credit line, they're supposed to get like their own credit card, their own access to that credit line, because technically that's the whole point of it. But if you want to just help them as far as like their credit and building up their credit history, then you take that and you cut it up and put it in the trash. And so they don't have access to your credit line, but they reap all of the benefits. Give them a month, give them 2 months, they should be solid and good to go. Depending on like their situation, it might take longer, especially if they had like a bunch of like hard credit hits, late payments. It'd be good for them to knock that off first. That's kind of the situation that my brother's in right now, where he's working on his credit. I'm just now adding him to my authorized user, but as my authorized user, but he had to like clear his debt. He had to work on his credit because it's not going to do much for someone that's like deep in the hole. Like we gotta figure out like, how do we get out of that first, and then we can like surpass where you started.
And so that's what you call bad debt.
Yeah,
like a bunch of credit cards. That's bad debt.
Yeah, that's bad debt. Like it really is bad debt. It doesn't help you. So it doesn't help you.
Also, like if you imagine putting your money somewhere and getting a 16% rate of return on it, compounding monthly, that's what you are providing to a credit card company when you're like making payments, when you're slowly paying down a credit card debt. You're just giving them 16%. Like, guess who's beating inflation? They are.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
And unbelievably bad to have like saddled on you. Yeah, the last thing you want is excessive credit card debt.
Oh, for sure. So like I was talking to my brother and his girlfriend's also has like credit card debt. And, you know, I mean, like you said, you got 16% APRs on these credit cards. So let's say, throw out a number, sitting at $1,500 credit card debt. She's like, okay, I'll pay $200 off, knock it down to 13. The next month comes back. Well, now you owe $300 more on top of that. So it's like,
Yeah, it's
it's
yeah.
it's a deadly game. Like it's I think it's like a mindset thing. So when I was looking into these credit cards and stuff, there has to like be a distinction made between and it's kind of like at first it can be confusing because all your accounts are like kind of combined and like it's kind of like, okay, well, checking, savings, credit card, multiple credit cards is like, okay, well, what's what? But it's like really good, and you have to make that clear distinction of like, okay, what's my money and what's borrowed money, because that's all credit limit is. It's borrowed money. So I never when I'm using my credit card, swiping my credit card, uh I'm never saying like this is my money. You know, this is me asking the bank, can I use your money? Can I buy something? I will pay you back. And that's all it is. So using that logic, I will never spend more on my credit card than I'm ready to like have in my checking. So if I have $200 in my checking account, that's my budget for my credit card. And like,
Yep.
I'm not going over that. The difference, if you're willing to spend that $200 or you're planning on spending it, the benefit comes is that if you swipe your credit card, pay the credit card off with the money that you were already intending to spend, then you've gotten what you purchased. But also, then you get that credit history, you get that that credit worthiness, like you were saying.
So there's an added benefit to using credit cards rather than paying cash or using a debit card. And that depends solely on which credit card company you go with. So the one that I use the most is American Express. American Express gives you points on everything. If you have an American Express Gold card, it's like getting groceries and stuff. It gives you extra points for that. If you have an American Express Blue card, eating out, restaurants and stuff, gives you extra points for that. If you have an American Express Platinum, travel is the big multiplier. So when Ann and I are going to go to Jaipur, India here in a few months. So when I book the hotel, I look and see in the Amex concierge service that they have, like, what hotels do you service in Jaipur? Like, oh, well, we service these. So I do my own Google search to make sure like it's still a good deal. It's like $200 a night. Okay, if I want it for 5 nights, that's $1,000. Instead of just 1 times the points, I get 5 times the points for booking it through their concierge service. Then I can spend those points on Amazon for whatever I want. If I have 75,000 points, that's like $523 that I can just spend on stuff. And so you can use this as a way to game the system just a little bit. Like you're not going to get rich off of this, but no, like right. You were saying, if you've got family that needs, a little bit of help, people that you trust that you want to add as authorized users, cool. You remember, did you ever meet Nichols while he was here? He worked back in India.
Where did he sit? No, I didn't.
Okay. So he's a big fan of paying for everyone's stuff when they go out as a group. He's like, you know what? I'll get dinner. Just Venmo me back. Why? Mm-hmm. He gets the points.
He gets the points. What a smart guy. Yeah. That's a good point.
look, it's just, it's not a lot of money, but swipe points. Maybe they have a deal where 5 times points you can spend them on airfare or whatever. It's
That's a,
you just gotta be educated about what opportunities are available.
yeah, that's a good point because in a lot of it is like you said, like a lot of it is just educating yourself. Like,
Yeah.
depending on the bank that you're with, I mean, these banks are huge. Like they have partners all over the world.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time they offer to you, like as a member of their bank, like so many perks, and so many benefits. Um, that like I think most people just kind of take for granted, or they just don't know, or they're just not aware. Um, I'm not sure how well these banks are advertising their perks. Clearly not as well as they're advertising their credit cards, but um, so
So do you have an American Express?
I don't. I wish I could, but my I still need more credit history. I think I need 2 more years of credit history before I can like be eligible.
So they waive I think it's like 450 or $500 annual fee for military, right?
Yep.
So you got an American Express, you can go into the Centurion lounges, the travel lounges, and they have like reciprocal access that they'll grant you at the priority pass lounges at airports.
Mhm.
The one here in Doha, the the freaking Amex lounge here is stupid nice.
Is it really?
So any Centurion lounge you go to, it's all you can eat and all you can drink.
Okay.
So I went there. I had a glass of white wine, a salmon sandwich. They were like, "You want a salmon sandwich?" I was like, "Why not?" It was like this wonderful, flavorful piece of focaccia bread with like lump salmon on top of it. It
Wow.
would have easily been like a $25 meal, $30 meal anywhere. It was just like you've got a 3 hour window of time. You can sit here, eat and drink as much as you want before you have to leave.
Man,
On
that is
top on top of that, they have offers each month. Companies They'll work with companies to offer you credits on things that you might already be buying. So
mhm.
like 1-800 flowers. If you spend $50 or more, you get $10 back. Good for 2 times. Sometimes these companies will do just weird things like if you spend $50, we'll credit you $50 up to 2 times.
Oh wow.
So for like it wasn't daily harvest, but it was something like that. It was like spend $75, we'll give you $75 back twice. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can create
Yeah.
two separate accounts and do that twice and not pay anything. Yes.
For
Wine
sure.
insiders. There was one deal where wine insiders, it was like if you buy over $50 worth of wine, we'll credit you $25.
Uh,
Most of these companies, when it's like when you're buying stuff online, they'll give you a first time user discount.
mhm,
So Wine Insiders gives you $35 off your first order.
mhm.
And then if you order 6 or more, shipping's free. So if you spend $12 a bottle times 8 bottles, that's what, 12 times 5 is 60, $72. You spend
Mhm.
$72, you get 35 plus 25 back, $60 back.
That
You just spent
yeah.
$12 twice.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Like
It's a no-brainer.
look at what's available. Like if you want a Walmart Plus membership because you want them to deliver food to your door for free, it's $11 a month, and you get Paramount Plus on top of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I just found that out. Like, I just found that out. I'm like, what? You get a free streaming service?
Yep.
So like, yeah, there's like all of these benefits, like for like simple everyday things, that you can save money on, and it adds up. Like it'll add up the same way as like if you're eating out every day, that'll add up just in a negative way. So you can have like all these like perks and whatever kind of going for you. And I feel like if you do it long enough and if you're able to like navigate it, there's most likely perks out there that aren't just kind of nickel and diming you as far as like giving you nickels and dimes, but are actually like significant, like, perks. Like for people that like if you have like a black MX card, like that's significant and it comes with a significant.
Okay, so you also have to be at a level of income where if you want to go to the BMW dealership, drop your Amex Black and buy every car at the dealership because like you still got to be able to pay that back. There's
that is very true.
So, have you probably haven't met Ship yet, have you?
Nope.
Walks with a limp, civilian, old retired Marine.
Mm-hmm.
He was a personal security for the founder of AOL.
AOL is, I feel like
America Online. Yeah, it's
okay.
A dial-up internet.
Really?
Back in the 90s, early 2000s.
He did security?
It's security for this guy and his family. Because he was in the Marine Corps. He got out after he got med-boarded, and he knows people, has connections, made a connection, and worked for this guy as his personal security, usually watching his family, but working for this guy. He said, yeah, he had an Amex Black. If it didn't matter what he wanted, if he wanted it, he'd drop the black card and be like, cool. Enjoy your fleet of BMWs, sir.
Oh my gosh. That is so wild. It is crazy how I kind of like thinking about like you said, India, and like how they have like certain like caste systems. In America, I feel like we definitely have like financial classes, Yes. And I'm not sure if the benefits trickle down as much as they should or as much as we think they do. But there's definitely like, you've heard of second-class citizen, stuff like that. So,
well, what do you see as benefits that should trickle
down? So like, I remember during the like first State of the Union of the current administration, they were talking about companies or people. I can't remember which one it was. It was like either the top 50 companies in America or top 50 richest people in America that paid either no taxes or nowhere as much as they should be. Now that's like, that goes into like another conversation, but generally if everything is like a well-oiled machine and taxes are like put towards what they're supposed to be put towards, then effectively everyone paying the taxes that they should be paying should like create a good machine. So the top pays their taxes, that helps the bottom pays their taxes, that all feeds into the larger system, and it all comes back, filter through the same cycle. That is like kind of like the biggest like, hey, that should be like trickling down. Besides that, I don't feel like if you've made your own wealth and, you've done well for yourself and that's something you did, by your own effort, I don't feel like you inherently owe like society, like, anything extra than paying your taxes. That is it, right? That like that is it. If you're paying your taxes, that's your contribution. That you've done your part. That is like, I feel like that's the entire concept, is that like, hey, I've worked hard, I've done this. There should be like, I should be helping society as a whole. That should be like a thing that everyone, like, that's ingrained in everyone. And if you're paying your taxes, that's your financial contribution. You donate to charities.
Charity.
Charities
I am not against helping people out financially at all.
Mhm.
I do not think the government is the most efficient way to do that.
Mhm.
So say for instance, I want to start a business because I have something that people want and I want to sell it. Can I just start selling it to people?
No, yeah, you can't.
You have to, I mean, you can, but
Yeah,
as
you can.
soon as somebody from the government identifies that, they're like, okay, well, where's my cut for being your government? It's like, well, okay, fair play. You're employed too, but the people that we elect are our employees. They are not our rulers. That's where people have it backwards. Those people work for me. So when somebody gets a job in the Senate or in Congress or one of the halls of government, and they can vote themselves pay increases while they're voting for me as a military member. Okay, so let's say 2020, that year, they voted a 21% pay increase for members of Congress.
Mhm.
21%. What was the military's pay increase? It's like
What was it?
2%?
2%?
3 or 4.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you voted to have me pay you more for what you're doing because you're doing such a good job, because my taxes pay your salary. Also, when these people have let's say you make $150,000 a year as a congressperson, whatever. How many congressmen and women stay? How many congressmen and women become millionaires through the course of their tenure in office?
99% of them.
Are they doing that by making $150,000 a year?
Oh, no way. No way.
No, they're not. No,
No
they're
way.
not. So when I think about the value of my time and money, I think I can probably spend it more beneficially to myself and the people around me than somebody that I've never met who feels entitled to vote themselves more, a larger chunk of the money that I'm already providing them.
So that does like bring up a like a problem that I have personally. Like, okay, I mean, just to preface, I love America. That's my country. Like, I love America. Like, I wouldn't want to like be a part of any other country. But like, there's still like, and it's not even like subtle. There's glaring problems.
Oh yeah.
And like, a problem that I have is, like you said, politicians, our employees, being able, not being legally, not having a legal obligation to act on the behest of people that have voted them in. So like they, given or take an oath to the office that they will follow the Constitution. That's great. That's good. Me and you've done that. I see no problem with that. But here's the catch. So when we take an oath to the Constitution, we say specifically, it's to support and defend the Constitution. It's not to support and defend the people. It's not to support and defend our friends and family. It's to support and leadership. Political leadership. It's to support and defend the Constitution, because the Constitution is the foundation of America, not the people. It's the Constitution. That's our core. So whatever we do, that's where we're trying to support. And I agree with that. So that's in part of the oath that lawmakers, politicians take, not to support, defend it, but to act on like the guidance of the Constitution. But nowhere in that oath is there an obligation to do what you're essentially there for, is to act on as a representative of the people, and for the people. So like example that I always throw out is like, okay, you elect someone in your state Congress, senator, House of Representative, whoever. You elect them, they run on a campaign with values that you believe, values that you agree with, and values that you expect them to carry on with. They get elected, they get the votes. Nowhere does it say they are obligated to, from there forth on, maintain those values and beliefs. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing. There's no
like binding contract that says, hey, if you fall short of the expectations that you established, see you later.
Yeah, there's no penalty for if you're running on like a super liberal or super conservative. And I only throw those out because like that's what media throws out. Like there's only two sides, there's more than two sides, but like, hey, I'm running on these. And then once you get in office, if you switch sides, like people are going to be upset, but you can still push all the laws you want, policies and rules, whatever you want, and there's no penalty. No penalty. Yeah. Like, why is there? I don't know why there's not a legal. Why is there not like a legal obligation for you to like say, hey, like, if that's like if that's a loophole or some kind of like issue with our government, that creates like the idea of like, okay, well, the entire government is running like off false narratives. It's running off like false preconceptions. You don't even have to be truthful. So like you can just lie. You just lie, like you're not penalized for it. And then the whole point is like you're a public servant. You're a public servant. That is your job. Like when you're like when you're taking an oath, like and all that stuff, that's what it is. You're a servant. Like sergeant. Sergeant means servant. You know what I'm saying?
So do you have a specific example of like a politician that you're thinking of that you've seen who's completely fallen short of what they said they would do?
I don't have like a specific example like on hand, like off the top of my head right now. I don't have a specific example. But so like back home, I'm sitting in like the recruiting office. That's where I typically sit, and we always have the news on every day. And just by me working and like listening to everything, I've noticed more than once when I'm seeing headlines or just even local news. Even like my mayor, um, my mayor back home, like she ran on this campaign of hey, we're gonna you know defund the police and like all this other stuff. Um, but then when she gets in, she's like, she's funding the police and doing all that stuff. I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, I'm not saying no, you should defund the police. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is like for the people that voted for her, whether I agree with them or not, like, where's their, where's their like
What are they getting out
satisfaction?
of it? What are they
What are they
getting out of
getting?
it?
What are they
Yeah.
getting out of it? And these are and that's what I'm saying. Like whether I agree or not, I don't think that's the point. Like
Well, I mean,
I
take defund the police. What did you think about that
don't agree with it.
as an idea?
I don't agree with it. I don't think that helps anybody. Um, like that was her campaign. Like she's running on like it's like we're gonna defund the police. It was during the like the whole like Black Lives Matter thing and like and like what like it's crazy. So like in St. Louis, that's like a big like where I'm from, that's a big like topic because it it kind of like that's kind of like where it spawned from after like the Trayvon Martin shooting. And like I knew that dude's cousin. Like I went to school with them and everything. Like I lived in the same area. Like that was very like I lived that. So like I get the movement. I get the movement. I'm with it. I'm all for it. But then there are, out of every good idea, there's 10 other bad ideas that comes out of it. And so that's what I saw happen. It's like things start organic and like it's for good intent. And then other people get a hold of it and they kind of misconstrue the idea or they take it and do just terrible things with it. And that's kind of what started happening. And one of those ideas that I feel like came from that was like defund the police. And I'm like, no, don't. Let's not do that. And that's what she ran on. And I felt like it was I didn't agree with it while she was running, but when she got in office and she completely like did a 180. For me personally, I was like, okay, good. But then for those people that voted for her, they feel betrayed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I went out because, assuming they're law-abiding citizens, you should be to vote. So they went out, they voted, casted their ballot. They were the majority here since she's in, and they get nothing. They get nada. And then just to rub it in their face, there's no repercussion for the person they elected in betraying them.
So there are options for that. It's called a recall.
Mm-hmm.
State of California tried to recall Gavin Newsom a year ago. The governor of California.
Yeah.
I mean, that was primarily Kamala Harris letting Gavin Newsom know his place so that he doesn't get any ideas thinking that he's going to try to become the Democratic nominee for president coming up.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, that's how politics works. Like, so the mechanisms do exist. The mechanisms do exist. A recall is just exactly what you're describing. It's you haven't met the expectations of the people who voted you in, so the people who voted you in are going to vote out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm a little more understanding of people who change their mind.
Mhm.
Like you could very well look at news headlines and think, all I see are young men being killed by the police and in my news feed every day, right? You know, depending on the filters that you apply to the information that you consume, you could very well come to the understanding that the police certainly seem to be killing a lot of unarmed Black men,
Mhm.
disproportionately 25 and under.
Mhm.
You might come to that conclusion. I don't think that is the correct conclusion based on all of the available information, but you could come to that conclusion by looking at the information available to you.
Mhm.
So you take that information, you think, well, somebody should do something about this. I'm not the kind of person to put that off. I'm going to do something about it. So let's say I find enough people to back me financially to make a run for mayor. Let's say I'm a good enough speaker that I can convince people, like, yes, when I get up to give stump speeches, I'm not going to be tripping over my words. I'm not going to be like stuttering and nervous and weird, and like I'm going to be able to engage with people. I'm going to be able to like make them feel comfortable voting for me.
Mhm.
You win. You get into office, and maybe you get a look behind the curtain that suggests that the information that is being put out in the news may not be entirely accurate. Maybe you get into power and you realize, oh, like I actually do need the support of the police union if I want to stay mayor, or if I want to take a shot at governor, or become a senator, or like if I want to pursue higher office, if I want to use where I'm at to get to whatever the next level is, I have to make the people that have the power to keep and support me here, I have to make them happy. There's a number of reasons why somebody might do a complete 180 on a position that they presumably held very deeply and communicated effectively enough to get elected into office. But
Mhm.
I think for most people, it's an actual education that they lack. Like you may very well think that climate change is a man-made phenomenon and it's affecting the earth and it will have catastrophic effects on the planet if it's not gotten under control. Right? You might think that gigantic plastic islands in the Pacific Ocean are fucking terrible, and they're creating microplastics that are getting into our water, that are leaching into our foods and probably our bodies, and causing all sorts of health defects. You might think that's a problem. Is the solution necessarily going to be eliminating plastic straws in the US? Or is it going to be trying to find a way to convince India and China, the two largest polluters of both carbon dioxide and plastics into the ocean, that maybe they shouldn't be doing that? Like, if what you care about is what you say you care about, then attacking the actual problem instead of plastic straws because you saw a heartbreaking video of a sea turtle getting one pulled out of his nose once online, like maybe the answer isn't to make life harder for the people in your community, like by defunding the police so that when you actually need the police, nobody comes.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Oh, please do.
That's a good point you had. So I never had to call the police for anything in my life up until last year. So I was getting off of work, just finished my normal day at work, nothing unusual. I'm going down the street, headed home, and I'm at a red light, and I see this SUV just flying. I mean, like, I'm like, yeah, this is about to be bad. I'm like bracing myself.
Are you in a residential area?
Yeah.
SUVs coming behind you?
I'm sorry, not a residential area. It was it was just a normal street. Like there was like it's like a normal street that you would take like just to like take a ramp off to the highway. It wasn't
Okay.
like I was in between homes or anything like that. So
Okay.
not residential. But I'm at a red light and this SUV is like flying behind me, and I'm like, this is about to be bad. So I'm like bracing myself, and right before she is about to hit me, she swerves around me and hits oncoming traffic, and like five of like they hit each other because they're also at a red light. They all go back, they all hit each other. It's bad. So I go up and I pull up to the woman that hit him. She hits him kind of like to the right of the first car, and that made her hit the other like 5 cars behind her, and then she kind of veers off in the middle turning lane. And I go up to her and I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, are you hurt? Are you safe? Are you?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm not hurt or anything." I go to other people and they're all like, they're ready to pull her out the car and rip her apart. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's not do that. Let's do not make a bad situation worse.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, give me a second. I'm gonna call the cops, get the police here. So I dial 911. I put the phone to my ear, and the first thing I hear is like, all dispatchers are currently busy, momentarily hold. And I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, did I dial the wrong number? So I'm like confused. And so the people, they're like, are they coming? I'm like, I'm on hold. And then coincidentally, a cop that was at a gas station. I didn't know something. He was at the gas station across the street. He ended up coming over and kind of dismissed me. I was like, "Hey, you're good. You can do whatever you were doing." I was like in full uniform. Like I just got off work. He's like, "Hey, you're good." And I'm like, okay. I'm like, but if you were not there and someone was hurt badly, I mean, sure, I did self-help buddy care. And yeah, like I did self-help buddy care and all that stuff, but like we need like a professional, like someone that's doing this day to day. And like we need them like now, like not however long the whole one. So I'm like, I blew my mind, and I was like, and that was one of the things that made me like, I was really like, no, don't defund the police. Like if if there's like you said, there's a problem. Like we see something happen, and we see like you said, people have their own filters. If you're seeing certain things, and it's making you come up with questions, like I feel like it's important to question questions, like what are we really trying to say, or what's really the issue? Because defunding the police is not, especially for St. Louis,
so
which is
if your goal is to combat armed policemen from brutalizing or killing unarmed men and women, okay, let's think about what that looks like. Is defunding the police going to do that? Yeah, it will. Like you are going to stop people
because they're going to leave. Yeah,
from being capable of doing that.
Yeah,
but you got some second and third order consequences there too, don't you?
Yeah, it's not. It's got. Yeah, one thing you're going to have is you're going to have cops quitting. They're going to leave. Yep. That's exactly what we had. So we had cops that's like, okay, you don't want to pay me? Well, guess what? I'm out of here.
I'm just gonna collect this pension, baby.
Yeah, I'm out of here. So nobody losers harder than the people that need the cops. So you think you're attacking the cops, you're attacking the people, you're hurting the people.
You're attacking the communities that are best served by public servants that are dedicated and committed, by and large, to making sure the streets are safe, to making sure that people are taken care of, to making sure that people in crisis have the support and help that they need.
I feel like, and I've always said, like, if we see there's a rise of you know, police crime, or I mean not police crime, but cops killing young Black men, then like, why are they killing the young Black men? And usually the answer is like, because they're committing crimes. It's like, well, why are they committing crimes? And like, what's the, like, how do we get there? Like, and there's, in the great thing about the human experience is that you yourself don't have to have the answer. Somebody knows. Somebody is familiar with the community. Somebody lives in that community. Somebody knows the nuances and understands what it means to, how an environment can produce a person that either is doing certain things or can be perceived as doing certain things. They can tell you. They can tell you, oh, well, you want to know why Ricky did this, or you want to know why they thought Johnny was doing that. Well, let me tell you how they grew up. Let me tell you their education. Let me tell you how this, that, and the third. And then like, that's where you start fixing it. That's where you start fixing it.
Did you ever see, I think it was Flint. It was
The water thing?
It was a police show on Netflix.
Oh.
Centered in Flint, Michigan.
Oh, really?
It was like cops, but more documentary style and specific to Flint, Michigan. You want to talk about a community that is very, like, okay, you inject a shitload of heavy metals into people's drinking water, and the health effects and the mental challenges that arise as a result. Yes, that is a poor, underserved, very hard on its luck community. And the police in that community are responsible for making sure that that the criminals among these people are held accountable. One of the things that they elected a police chief. He's like, any cop can go and see somebody commit a crime and arrest that person for committing a crime. I don't need that. I need people who know where the crime is going to be committed and go and stop it before it's going to happen. So I'm putting together a task force to do that. It's like predictive policing.
I was just about to say, yeah, like, okay, that's a good way to put it.
So what do you think somebody who sees predictive policing might interpret from that? Where's the crime going to happen?
Yeah. So that.
Do you want to stop the crime? Are you serious about stopping the crime? Do you want to get guns and drugs out of the hands of gang members? Do you want to stop these anywhere from 14 to 22-year-old kids from shooting each other up?
Yeah.
Probably. What sort of spears do you think are going to get thrown at you for doing that? Racist.
Yeah.
Never mind the police chief's Black. Never mind half the police force is Black. Never mind these are the people from these communities that care about these communities, that want them to be safe, want them to thrive, want them to flourish. If your goal is to stop crime, you have to go where the crime is. If you want less crime, okay, well, why is there more crime there? Is it because there's less opportunity? Maybe. How do you offer people more opportunity? Defunding the police? No.
Yeah. You're like hitting the nail on the head. Like that is many times than not, that is what it comes down to. Like, is that there are underserved communities that have been, and these communities have been underserved for a long time. And it's not that they're like pigeonholed to these communities, but it's all that they know. They don't even have the education system, a good education system, in order to help them get better opportunities. Their schools aren't accredited schools. They're not good schools.
Well,
They're
I don't know that public education is public education isn't serving. I have my qualms with public education. Like, this is another government program that does not work well. Did you come out of high school with skills and information that you could immediately apply in the real world? No, not even a little bit.
No.
If you went to college, did you go to college and come out with skills and information that you could immediately apply in the real world? Not really. Not really. Part of the reason is that as a society, we've devalued labor. We've devalued the value of productive, physical, manual, skilled labor.
Yes.
Go to college if you want to be successful. Don't become an electrician, which last I checked is probably more important than a degree in the humanities.
Business
right?
management.
Business management, intelligence studies.
Yeah. So I'm right there with you. So I don't know if I told you, but like I'm cross training into HVAC. So when I joined the military, so my dad has been in the military my entire life. He started off in the Corps, then went to the Air Force. And when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be like firefighter or something. That ended up like falling short. I thought I wanted to be a music artist. I feel like everyone does that at some point. That ended up falling short. And I was like, okay, I need something to bridge the gap between me not knowing what I want to do and knowing what I want to do. And the best option at the time that I saw was the military. So I go to my dad and I'm like, hey, what's up with this whole thing? And he's also a recruiter. He's also my recruiter. And I'm like, hey, what's this military stuff? Like, how does this work? And he's like talking me through it, and I'm kind of, thinking about it. And he suggested me, he was like, hey, this is job called intelligence. He was like, sounds cool. He says, he's like, it's more of a white collar job. And that was, in him saying that was this, like, it's part of this, like you said, this devaluing of blue collar jobs. So, I have that in my mind. I'm like, okay, white collar job equals, success, white picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 kids, wife, the whole nine. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what people do in America. So I enlist, and prior to me being here, I'm like learning about my job and I'm doing it. And I'm like, okay, job is needed. It definitely is needed. I see where I fit in. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm just sitting there observing my environment. I'm like, someone has to build this place. Someone has to like keep the air conditioning running. Someone has to like design this computer and whatever. And I'm like, in a couple years, as like AI is moving forward, I'm like, my job can be augmented, and replaced by a computer. whoever's building this computer, they're going to be there. Whoever's building this place, they're going to be there. Like whoever is like doing like providing these basic, needs for like our like modern day society, they're going to be there. And if anything, my perspective, they're providing much more value than we give them credit for. And so, cause like my dad was like, he was all like, hey, like in today's world, you don't have to get your hands dirty. You can live a great life without, while having like clean fingernails or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But like as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, I'm like looking up a video of like how to change a tire because my dad never taught me because he was like, oh, you should pay somebody to do it. So I'm like, no, I don't want to pay nobody. Like I want to, what if I'm like in the middle of nowhere? Like I need to know how to do these things. Like,
yeah,
why don't I know how to do anything? Like this is not good. So I'm like having like this and like this deployment definitely helped like me have like time to myself and think about it. But I'm like, man, I can build you the best PowerPoint you've ever seen, but damn it, I can't fucking fix, my dishwasher. Like that's not, like, what is going on? So I'm like, and so I'm having like this like paradigm shift where I'm like, I recognize the value of certain jobs, certain careers, and what they do. But for me personally, I need to make sure because I don't have anything against like blue collar work. I've done it. I don't mind it. I can immediately identify how I helped, how I immediately after I'm done see the reward of my work. Mm-hmm. I don't have to wait to find out. I see it. You can see the happy face after I cut someone's grass. Hey, thank you. I used to do that when I was younger, go cut my neighbor's grass, older person. They don't want to do it. They don't want to pay for it. I cut their grass, super happy, super thankful. I see that, and like somebody has to do it. And so, while I'm here, I'm like, yeah, I'm not with it anymore. I tried going to college. I really did. I tried it until it only took me a semester and a half for me to realize this is brainwashing one-on-one. Like I have never been like, it's like insultingly obvious. Like, like the stuff I'm reading in the textbooks. I was reading
what sort of stuff? What sort of stuff comes out?
So I'm a Christian, and it was my I want to say it was my interpersonal communication class. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I was reading my textbook, and religion was a brief topic that it brought up, but it was one of the topics. And what it was saying is that, yeah, I think it was interpersonal communication, but what it was saying was like, basically understanding people and understanding your audience in religions was one of like the subtopics of that. And it was like, like when you're talking, like understand, separate, facts from like, just belief or feelings or whatever. If you're having like a debate or something like that. And it brought up religion and it brought up Christianity. And it said, it was talking about Christianity like it was like some like Harry Potter book or something like that. And it was like, yeah, obviously like Christianity isn't real, but people believe in it. But be mindful that people believe in it. But just to show you that it's not real, it like cherry picked some verses of like of like Moses and Noah during the flood, and it was like, obviously this is like, come on, like it's
Fiction.
yeah, it's fiction. And so I'm like, I'm reading this, and it's supposed to be doing an essay on it. So I'm putting my essay like, yeah, textbook's wrong, because the prompt was like, how does learning about what you learned about from the textbook, as far as like learning people's background and stuff, affect how you conduct your interpersonal communication, whatever. And I was like, when I got to that part, I'm like, as far as understanding religion, textbook's wrong. And I went on this. I went on a rant on my essay. I got a good grade on it, but my professor had a lot of feedback. And we kind of went back and forth through emails. And we kind of came to the conclusion of like, okay, agree to disagree, which is fine. That's okay, sure. Like that's how it should be, right? Okay, you don't agree with it, perfect.
Public education should not teach you what to think about the topics that it is offering you. It should offer you a framework for how to think effectively about the information and then apply it. Like, so can you take the two creation stories at the beginning of the Bible, that God breathed, that God spoke existence into being, and the raising up Adam, right? The two creation stories. Can you say that those definitely didn't happen? I don't know. Is that really the point though? Or is there maybe more to the idea of a higher power creating habitable order out of chaos? Is there more that you can unpack from the distinction between order and chaos, and why speaking the words created order, right? Like maybe there's something there that isn't necessarily, that you're not best served by trying to interpret as literally and uncharitably as possible.
Yes, that's a great point. Like, first of all, cherry picking anything, any literature out of context is like, that's wrong. Like, that's
Red
not
flag.
how yeah, red flag. So, but then, presenting it as like a literal translation, like they literally meant this because they had no concept of metaphors or figurative speech. Like, they just did not understand it, so everything they said was literal. Like, come on, let's be serious. So so having that experience along with other experiences during my short couple semesters in college was enough to convince me this is not for me personally. But what saddened me is seeing, like, so I was doing online school. What saddened me is that seeing my responses were, depending on what the topic was, they were typically very like contrary. Like, I was definitely devil's advocate. Like, well, what about this? Or have y'all thought about that? Or everyone else was just like, it's like it felt like I was like the literal black sheep. Like, and everyone else was just like
the only one not accepting the information at face value.
Yeah, and everyone is like, hey, what's your problem? Like, you don't get it. And I'm like, and I'm sitting in this class, I'm sitting on my computer, I'm reading the comments. I'm like, I'm in one class in, out of many classes. And I'm like, this is happening all over, at the uni, online, whatever, and people are just eating this shit up. And they're like, makes sense to me. And I'm like, and so I'm thinking, I'm like, I see why we have so many issues. Um, I think what helped me personally was going through like, tech school and how they focus on like critical thinking and like you said, give you the tools and have you apply it. So like giving you these like, these ways to look at a problem, and not telling you how you should look at it, but
or the conclusion that you should arrive at.
Once you
look at the information.
That's a great point. Or the conclusion you should arrive at. But like you with your tools and your own autonomy, what do you see? So in that practice and having that practice, and and kind of like ingraining it in every part of my life is like, okay, what am I actually seeing? What actually am I trying to figure out? Having that background and then going to college versus I feel like most people it might be reversed, but having all that experience and then going to college, like seeing this stuff, and I'm like, this isn't right. This is not like this doesn't seem right to me.
I got a third of a degree in clinical social work.
Ooh, social worker. That sounds like a very tough job.
Very humanitarian oriented, humanities rather oriented. Yeah, it was basically just leftist political indoctrination masquerading as helping people.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, think about it. How many like government programs rely on social workers to offer support to people in need? Lots of them. Lots of federal programs, lots of state programs, lots of military programs employ licensed clinical social workers, LCSWs. So when my textbook would say things like, white people can't be discriminated against based on the color of their skin because white people have all the power in society, I'm thinking
that's a real like something in a printed review.
That is an 85% verbatim quote. It's been a few years since I've read it, but yes, white people cannot be discriminated against based on the color of their skin because they are the dominant race in American culture. Because we have diluted the common understanding of what it means to be racist for whatever reason. Because it's not enough to say that discriminating against somebody based on the amount of melanin that they have in their skin constitutes racism, because that's not enough. It has to be, you are culturally privileged, you are socially privileged, and so anything you do, to include being born, is an act of aggression against the unprivileged or the less privileged or the underserved or the marginalized. That's racist, right? Like, is it? Am I saying that I hate somebody because of the color of their skin, or no? So they would try to redefine the word to mean power plus prejudice. Power plus prejudice. And that's how you'll see it employed in common discussions like on the news for whatever reason. And in my coursework, because it was important to understand if you had privilege when you were helping people of less fortunate communities. It was important to acknowledge your privilege. I'm like, is this really helping people? Is me saying that I believe I should feel bad about how much easier my life has obviously been than yours has been. Is that helping anybody? Really? It's sort of just, it sort of seems like it's not. And there was even, I remember a chapter. The chapter title was, "Are you a feminist?" With the understanding that if the answer was no, you were wrong. Because if you're not a feminist, you can't be a good person, can you?
Oh my God.
Or care about the well-being of others enough to pay to get an education to try to help them through things, right? Like, if you're not a feminist, clearly you're not one of us.
Yeah.
Like, well, that seems,
because we are always right. Yeah, that yeah, I feel like you said, like these like indoctrinating like curriculums. I don't even know where it comes from. Like where did we go wrong in, it's school. School is not supposed to be a.
It's the introduction of cultural Marxism into our education systems. Mm-hmm. It's whoever has the power is evil. So if you interpret the world through a lens that demonizes whoever has the power, and you'll see it reflected in the media. If you're rich, unless you hold the right political views, you're evil. If you're white, a lot of, for whatever reason, CNN and MSNBC and CBS, like, they are very much of the opinion that if you are rich and white, you are inherently evil or should be worked against. Look at Elon Musk.
So who are we saying are the people's in power if they're pushing these narratives? Like who are we?
It's a combination of the government and corporate interests. It's a combination of the government and corporate interests, with the addition of the injection of cultural Marxism into our education system, where we have an education system that's breeding activists rather than productive members of society, that's incentivizing activism rather than meaningful, productive work. Right? If you look at the largest donors to political campaigns, it's special interests. It's companies like Johnson and Johnson. It's companies like Pfizer. It's companies like Facebook, Google.
Speaking of that, these donations or these lobbyists, how in the hell is lobbying not a taboo and illegal practice? I mean, that has blown my mind for as long as I heard about it. Like, the moment I heard, hey, as long as you're a company and you have enough money and power, you can go to any politician you want, hand them a couple bags, send their family on a vacation, get them a nice house, buy them a car, and they'll do whatever they want for you. And it's not bribing, by the way, it's lobbying. It's more of a higher class thing. So I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And that's encouraged.
Imagine you're in charge of writing the laws that would make that sort of thing illegal. Now imagine you're also the beneficiary of that activity.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to be either independently wealthy, and not reliant, therefore, on those donations that would ultimately help get you elected, or your message would have to be effective enough and resonate with enough people. Think Bernie Sanders in 2015 when he announced his candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to resonate with enough people for there to be a grassroots effort to support your campaign, to support your candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
And actually right now, I don't know about grassroots effort necessarily, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, I heard about him. Yeah.
So I actually watched his entire speech at the Hillsdale College. If you haven't started doing this yet, when you watch videos or whatever it is that you like to, whatever media you like to consume, put it at like 1.5 speed, 1.75 speed. And you will be amazed at how much faster you can consume the information.
Really?
So I told you about Undercover Billionaire, right?
You did. Yeah, you did. You did.
5 hours and 48 minutes. I watched it in 2.5 hours.
I need to try that because yeah.
Do it. You watch a 2-hour video at 1.5 speed, it'll take you an hour.
Yeah, okay.
You speed it up on half, like you're just giving yourself time back. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched his entire 2-hour speech, and it was some of the things that he said were kind of fucking crazy, if I'm being honest. Like,
really?
things I had never really considered before. So one of the things that he said, he was born in 50s or the 40s or something like that. I don't know. He's pretty old. He was saying that when he was a kid, it was something like 1 in 10,000 people were diagnosed with autism.
1 in 10,000.
1 in 10,000. Pretty rare, right? That is pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think he said it was 1 in 34.
Oh my gosh, 1 in 34 people are diagnosed with autism.
And just to like, one of the things that I wanted to actually, here, I'll just share my screen right now. One of the things that I wanted to do was sort of like go through the points that he made and fact check it, because April 4th, 2023, from cdc.gov, that bastion of truth and knowledge, about 1 in 36 children has been identified with autism spectrum disorder, according to estimates from CDC's Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network. 1 in 36 on the spectrum. About 1960. Because you would probably not, okay. When she was born in 1968, autism was a diagnosis reserved for children with severe developmental delays. Experts believed autism affect only 4 or 5 out of every 10,000 children. So one of the that's a quick Google search that more or less confirms the numbers that he had to offer. One of the things that he said was, why hasn't anybody explored this? Why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody asking the question, why are we seeing a multi-hundred-fold increase in the rates of autism in people in our country? And he's like, one of the answers that he provided was, oh, they would say that it's just, you didn't notice it. We didn't notice it before. Now we're noticing it and diagnosing it before we weren't. He's like, it's like watching a train wreck, right? But this is a person's life. You think people didn't notice when somebody had autism? Like, you're trying to get people to believe a lie that their eyes would disconfirm for them. right? Like you can see somebody who is autistic,
Mhm.
just interacting with them. You're like, oh, okay, you're a little autistic, or you're a lot autistic,
Mhm.
right? If a child misses their milestones, a parent notices that,
Mhm.
guaranteed.
Mhm.
And so he had a lot of things to say in his 2-hour speech that I watched at 1.75 speed, so it went a lot faster. I'm going to go through his speech again and pull out some of the things that he said, because they were things that I had not considered before.
Were
Autism.
they like, just eye-opening things?
Yeah, yeah.
I got something eye-opening for you.
Yeah.
So, and you could look it up too. So, somewhere back in the early 2000s or 2010s, there was a so doctors, like these people with PhDs, they gotta to stay relevant in their career field, they have to put out papers, research papers, and all that stuff. Well, there was this guy that put out a paper basically saying, hey, I identified the cellular malfunction, deformation, or what do you call it? Starts with an M, mutation
Okay.
that leads people to having Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
And at the time, I think this was like a groundbreaking paper he put out. The entire like medical field ran with it. I think just 2 years, 3 years ago, found out the dude was just lying. He just lied. There was no basis on anything that he was claiming. There was nothing true. So they were like, okay, from that point he put out that paper till we just decided to fact check him. We've made no improvements. And this is like damn near 20 years since this dude put out this paper. And I'm like, how are you able, maybe I can get up too. Let me see. Like how does it happen where you like, I mean, like an entire medical field, like you're just lost. Like, how are you not able to get that? Like, how are you not able to figure that out? It blows my mind.
And so, I feel like I heard something about this recently, where it's basically what you're describing, which is deference to authority without understanding what it is you are accepting
Mhm.
is effectively like you're putting yourself at risk for whatever anybody else wants to tell you. Like if it sounds convincing enough to you and you're willing to not think about what it is they're telling you, you'll just accept it blindly and you'll go forth in life and you'll be wrong a lot.
Oh, check it out. So here we go. I don't know, how do I share this with you?
So there should be a little share screen option towards the center and the bottom.
Gotcha. All right, you're able to see this.
Mhm.
So boom, right here. This is coming from, I think that's ABC. It talks about allegations of fabricated research undermine key Alzheimer's theory. Then he goes on to talk about this guy in 2006. He put out a study about Alzheimer's disease. They said it may have been fabricated. The images that he had published may have been like doctored and stuff. So this was during the time it had first came out, and then later on found out like, yeah, this dude was completely bogus. Like nothing he was saying was true. When people actually looked into his study, and this is like I said, so this came out in, he put it out in 2006. This came out in 2022, so 16 years later. They're just now like, oh yeah, this dude is a liar, by the way. Like Alzheimer's kills people. People have died. People have buried their loved ones just for the entirety of the medical community to be like, well, we just decided not to fact check the guy. And when somebody
Yeah,
did,
isn't that what the peer review process is supposed to be? Isn't it supposed to be a group
yeah,
of your peers who are understand the subject matter well enough to be able to identify if you're bullshitting or not?
yeah, that's like literally the entire point of having like peer review. You know, no doctor, PhD, doesn't matter what you have. If you're claiming some things, you know, that haven't been claimed before, everybody needs to take a stab at it, you know, with heavy, like with extremely heavy skepticism. You know, where'd you get this from? Can you duplicate it? Recreate it now. Like we need to get more of this.
Are the results of your study replicable? If not, the hypothesis is discarded, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to work.
Yes. So I'm like, how does that happen? Like, you know, Alzheimer's is really common. Like that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of elderly people get Alzheimer's, and if everyone's fortunate, hopefully you don't get early onset Alzheimer's. But it's bad. Like it's up there. And for, you know, us as like a society to not like this one guy, I mean, I feel like what it does, it shows like how weak and how just unstable our infrastructures are. Take for instance the guy that leaked all those documents. Like it takes one person, and then everything crumbles, like everything just falls apart. Like how do we get ourselves in these situations where it only takes one person to do something, not even like like absurdly corrupt. Now, the document leak was like crazy, but you know, this dude lied.
That was a kid trying to catch. That was a kid trying to catch clout on his Discord server.
Yeah.
Like there are better reasons to ruin your life than that, I think.
Yeah, but like this doctor, he lied on a study, an important study. Granted, an important study. Who knows how many people are lying on their studies? This may be something that he picked up while he was in the field. He's probably done it before, didn't think much of it. And like nobody else thinks much of it either. Just okay, yeah, he must have it figured out. And we're just
yeah. Have you in the same vein, have you heard of the Sokal squared hoax?
Ooh, no.
Okay, so pretty much the same thing, except James Lindsay, I think he's a PhD. Sokal squared hoax. So Alan Sokal tried to so a little bit of backstory. Alan Sokal tried to get papers published that he knew were utter bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
He made claims using sort of like flowery nonsense language to essentially just like, it's sort of like the bright flashing lights in a sales display, where he used this like weird flowery language to identify whether a leading North American journal would actually publish it, would publish an article liberally salted with nonsense, if it sounded good and it flattered the editor's ideological preconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
The answer was yes. Right? Okay, so this was the article that he tried to get published, transgressing the boundaries towards a transformative hermeneutics of quantum gravity. And 3 weeks after it got published, passed the peer review phase and actually published. He wrote an article and said, yeah, that was bullshit.
Is this dude even a quantum physicist?
So I think he is actually like a mathematician.
Uh-huh.
Like the dude knows his shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you have, what stars have to align for you to be the kind of person who gets a PhD in mathematics, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's got one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit, we're right here. We can look it up. Professor Emeritus of Physics.
Yeah, he has his PhD he has his BA from Harvard and his PhD from Princeton.
Yeah.
And he has it in physics, mathematics, and philosophy of science.
Yeah. Okay. So this dude knows his shit. So he knew enough to write something that sounded like it was going to be accepted by the people who published this magazine, and he was right. Like, they were willing to look past the absurd arguments that he was making in his paper and just like, oh yeah, cool, publish away. So Sokal Squared is a more modern version of that. And this, yes, Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay. So the Grievance Studies affair, also referred to as Sokal Squared, was the project of a team of 3 authors, Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay, and Helen Pluckrose, to highlight what they saw as poor scholarship and eroding criteria in several academic fields. So this happened in 2017, 2018. One of the things that they did was they took a chapter of Mein Kampf. You familiar with Mein Kampf?
Not too familiar.
So translated into English, it means My Struggle, and it was written by Adolf Hitler.
Oh, wow.
So take a chapter of Mein Kampf and replace the word Jews with like women or feminists, something that catered to the ideological orientation of the editors of the magazine that would look at it to see if it was publishable. So they submitted 10 articles, and 4 of them got published. 4 got published. Sorry, 20 articles. They wrote 20 articles that promoted deliberately absurd ideas or more morally questionable acts and submitted them to various peer-reviewed journals. By the time of the revelation, 4 of their 20 papers had been published. 3 had been accepted, but not yet published. 6 had been rejected, and 7 were still under review.
So there were potentially more than 4 out of those 20 that were going to be published.
Yes. Okay, Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf being rewritten in feminist language. Yeah. Included among the articles that were published were arguments that dogs engage in rape culture and that men could reduce their transphobia by anally penetrating themselves with sex toys. So you want to talk about playing towards the weird preconceived ideas of the people that are publishing these articles? That's what they did. And so an academic trying to get published, and a successful academic might get 2 a year. Maybe. Like 1, maybe 2 a year. the most successful, the most diligent, hardworking, intelligent authors, academics, they can get up to like 8 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Just writing bullshit. These they got 4 and probably more like 10 based on the ones that were accepted but not published and then under review, like probably closer to like 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to essentially fake their way into the highest levels of productivity that academics has.
Mm-hmm. And they're
mind-blowing.
And they're the people educating the
Educating.
Yeah.
These are the people indoctrinating kids our age
mm-hmm.
into believing nonsense that does not serve our society, that does not make our culture stronger, that teaches people to hate one another, that teaches people to hate their country and hate where they're from and hate the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not good. It's not good for our country.
That's the conclusion. I feel like that's the conclusion. Like it's not good. None of it's good. None of it, like
so I bought the book that Alan Sokal published called Fashionable Nonsense. So he published it in 1996, 1997, after he got his towards transformative quantum heuristic, whatever. And it was shocking, honestly. Like, so what he did was he was like, hey, this is what I did here in 1996. This is what I had been seeing. And here are your biggest contributors to this fashionable nonsense, to this absolute utter bullshit that's getting passed along as academically rigorous writing. And so what he did was, I think one of the guys was Michel Foucault, who is a prominent.
Oh, he's like calling out people. He's like name dropping.
Yes. He was like, hey, these are 8 people who have published things that don't actually make sense by the syntactical structure of language as we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting published, and they are getting prominent positions in the government as a result of the work that they've been doing. One guy, okay, so I think it was Michel Foucault, and he's a prominent postmodernist, which we don't have to get into what all that is, but it's essentially there is no objective reality, right? That's the underlying tenet of postmodernism. Like, there is no objective reality.
Is it the idea that like everything is like your perception of reality is just a perception,
just as valid as anybody else's, no matter what?
Okay. Agreed.
Demonstrably untrue. Okay,
Agreed.
so he takes one of these articles that this guy has published, and he prints it, puts it in his book, unedited, in its original language, because it was published in French, and then he includes the English translation of it. And he's like, listen, I understand that I'm going to catch shit from other academics who love postmodernism because they're going to say that I'm selectively editing or cherry picking. To prove that I am not, here is the whole fucking article that this guy wrote and the English translation so that you can translate it yourself should you so desire. It's right here for you. You can't understand what the guy's saying because the words, at least the English ones, while they are in fact English words, the way they are arranged is not an understandable sentence structure as you or I would formulate it or comprehend it.
Right.
This is the stuff that's getting published in and setting the example for what else can be published. What, like, there's, if you're interested in diving down the, let's call it academic misconduct rabbit hole, are you active on Twitter at all?
No, I don't have Twitter. I'm not too active on social media in general.
You're probably better off. However, at new peer review on Twitter is a group of academics that specifically points out like academic malfeasance as it's published.
Mhm.
Like they offer up abstracts, like the abstracts of articles and article titles and the pictures that some of the professors will put of themselves in their articles.
Mhm.
And it is really discouraging, if I'm being honest. It's really,
would you say it's like alarming?
very much.
So I've like briefly looked into it, but I know there's like a big problem with like academia. Like, why is it so corrupt? And like, why is there a focus on, I feel like just the structure of like academia and like how you maintain relevance and like how you I guess for some people maintain some kind of job satisfaction. It seems like you either have to be really good at lying, you have to be somehow, some way always discovering groundbreaking shit, or you just don't, and you just fade away. So like the incentive to like be good and genuinely good and like productively progressing, it isn't there. Like there's almost no reason to do it the right way. Because then you're criticized. Like you're criticized and you're ostracized, and you get no support.
That's not necessarily true. At the institutional level, there are colleges that are not tolerant or accepting of the idea that you should be teaching your students what to think rather than how to think. There are colleges that actually give a shit about what their students come away with. Lieutenant Giroux, if you ever got to meet her in NTI, she went to a college in, I think it could be wrong, but it might have been upstate New York, and they worked very closely with companies that would recruit people from their programs. So like if you want real world experience, you're going to go intern for this company that we have this relationship with over the summer. And then you're going to come back and we're going to keep teaching you. And then you're going to go intern again. And by the time you leave, you're going to have a 6-figure job. Like there are schools that genuinely provide value to their students, to society.
Sounds like how college should be.
Sounds like how it should be.
I don't know how you come out of college jobless. Like, how do you come out of college looking for a job? I don't understand that. Like, isn't that the entire point? Is that upon graduation, for whatever position you're expected to fill, you have at least met the minimum requirement to be somewhat competent at that job, to fill it and be trained into what, should be all the requirements of fulfilling whatever role. But I don't know why that's not normal. Why is that not normal? That confuses me, definitely. Just seems weird.
I think partially it's government subsidization. I think it's the fact that the government will subsidize people to go to college and will offer grants to people, and the college knows that they can count on that income. Part of it is the quota system, where if a college has X number of Chinese immigrants or X number of Native Americans, they are going to get, this much federal funding for supporting Native Americans. Like, okay, so we don't actually need to teach them anything. We just need to get them in the door, and we're going to get paid. Yes, why not? Why wouldn't we? The incentive structure is such that you're not incentivizing productive labor after college. You're incentivizing getting the most amount of people in and keeping them there for as long as possible. And so colleges are incentivized to offer like an extended adolescence. Like you can go and just party your absolute ass off. And
that's a great way to put it. I've never heard it like that. Like, yeah, that's a great way to put it. An extended adolescence. Yeah, like you can go there. And did you know? Speaking of extended adolescence and government substance. Say it for me. Yeah. Speaking of that, I just found out that child support doesn't have to end at 18 if the child immediately goes to college. And then you don't stop paying it until they're done graduating college. But at 18, legally, they're not a child anymore, but it's reinforcing that idea of like, well, they're still figuring it out. They still need some help. It's still the idea of like this extended adolescence, like even to the point where the government will force a parent to provide for a grown adult. I'm not in every parent has the right to parent their child how they believe, but it is my belief that, and it can be changed. I'm always open to change, but it's my belief that once you're 18, like you should, as you move on through life, getting up to that point, you should have the idea that like, hey, you're going to be a kid, you're going to be a teenager, but then you're going to be an adult. And this is how adults are. And this is what adults do. So like, I'm not saying that once you've turned 18, your parents just turn your back on you and like, well, figure it out. But what I am saying is like, once you turn 18, there needs to be like that conversation. Like, okay, do you have to figure it out? I mean, do you have it figured out? If you don't, what do you need to help you get there? Like, how do we help you get there? Because like, and I've talked like to some family members and friends about this, but I'm like, if I have a child and like they turn 18, the first thing I'm thinking about is like, okay, well, let's get you your own place. And the response I get is like, oh, well, what if they're not ready? Well, they don't have it figured out. I'm not telling them to have figured out what they're going to do for the next 40 years. I'm saying, get your own space. Get your own space. Get used to paying bills. Get used to waking up by yourself, kind of doing things on your own. That's all I'm saying.
So
why? Yeah.
As a parent, this is something that it is incumbent upon you to teach your children from a young age. Like, teach them self-reliance, teach them resilience, teach them that when one door closes, or all the doors in front of them that they thought they were going to walk through close, go find another door.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if
Yeah.
if you're 15 and you're not working, and you're not earning your own money somehow, working as a lifeguard, working as a bagger at Kroger, working as a cutting lawns, right? If you're not getting used to funding the things that you want in life, like, chances are good that having the conversation at 18 is going to be a little on the late side.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because if you want to give your child a taste of independence, like, all right, tell you what, for every dollar you make that you put towards a car that you want to buy, I'll match it $1, right? Like, I want you to have independence. I want you to succeed. I want you to be able to go where you want to go and do what you want to do. I want you to be able to hang out with your friends and have independence and have a job. So let's incentivize that. Let's figure out a schedule that works for you so that you're doing your homework, you're on top of your grades, none of your grades are falling. You're able to sleep enough, you're able to be productive, but you're also able to enjoy the fruits of your own labor.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to make you pay rent. I'm not going to make you pay for electricity, not necessarily. Not going to make you pay for food or water or whatever. But, like, okay, this is what taking responsibility for yourself looks like.
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, you have job experience now. When you go to a prospective employer, you can say, look, I've got a history of good work. I was able to manage getting good grades at the same time as I was working. Like, why wouldn't you want to hire me? Teach me what you can so that I can offer you value as an employer, right? Like, incentivize that at an early age. And you don't have to have the conversation when they turn 18 to, like, hey, you might need to figure some things out now.
That's a
No, you're going to be
that
on your way.
that is a great point. I feel like you described my exactly like my path. Like, I started working when I was 15, 14 going on 15. At that time, I was kind of getting paid under the table. I knew I needed to do something. I knew I was getting at the point where, like, I'm seeing my friends with a little bit of money. I'm like, oh, I want some money too, you know? So I'm like, I'm gonna figure out how to do it. So in the summer, I cut grass. In the winter, I shovel snow. Then I found this grocery store that would allow me to work there, and I do simple stuff like mop the floor, stock the shelf. That's all they asked of me. Give me like $20 a day. I was the happiest person. I was happy. I'm like 14, 15. I got like $100 at the end of the week. I'm like, look at me. I'm like, I'm doing great. And then, like, as I got older, I'm like, okay, yeah, this $100 isn't really working anymore. Because I wanted to get a phone. My parents were like, you're working, get your own phone. You know, so I'm looking around, I'm like, man, this phone is like, it's like a month's worth of work. I'm like, I don't know, that's gonna cut it. I'm like, I need to get something better. So that's what I did. I got something better. I was able to save up more and got me a phone. And then, you know, after a while, I'm getting older. Now my friends are like driving to high school. I'm like, I want a car. So I'm like, how much does a car cost? And it's it's like this progression of like realizing that there's things that you both need and want that you have no one to rely on but yourself to provide those things. Like that's like what it slowly boils down to. It slowly boils down to like, okay, I need to, if I need this or if I want it, I need to provide myself that, that opportunity to acquire whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I believe that that is something. I don't even think that's a skill. Like, that's not even skill. That's just like that's just understanding what it means to grow up. And I think that um, a lot of like my generation, and my generation specifically, I have a lot of problems with. But my generation, I feel like you said, no one wants to do blue collar work and stuff like that. I feel like it's this whole mindset where if it seems hard or it seems like too much responsibility, like because there's just like nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong because when you're wrong, you're put on blast. You're just embarrassed everywhere, and like nobody wants to be wrong. Um, and you're more wrong when you have more things you're responsible for. You know, like
Yeah, there
there's
are more opportunities for failures, certainly.
yeah, there's more opportunities for failure, and but then again, I think failing is good. Like you need to like land on your ass a couple times and figure out how to like dust yourself off and figure out how do we move forward, like how do we get past this and yeah I don't I don't think that always lending a helping hand is always helpful,
So that sort of makes me think of it was a Netflix show called Jiro Dreams of Sushi, and
Mhm.
it's about the top sushi chef in the world. It's like an hour and a half long video that is basically a master class in what it means to achieve mastery in anything. For him, it
Mhm.
was making sushi.
Mhm.
So Jiro has a very small sushi restaurant in a subway station in Tokyo, Japan.
Okay.
And it's nothing fancy, but he is the best sushi chef in the world because he
Really?
gets up and does the exact same thing every single day of his life.
Okay.
Every,
Not of the week or
every
of
single
the
day,
month, but of his life.
he gets up and does the exact same thing every single day. And
Wow.
so one of the things that he talked about was like when he had, I think, so one of the things they were like, yeah, when our mom died, he took a day off, but and then he and but then he got cancer and that knocked him out for a little bit. But other than that, he never misses a day and never
Oh,
had,
oh my God.
right?
Wow.
So he's got two or three sons. His two sons are both sushi chefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them, I think he was saying like his oldest son, when it came time for him to leave the house, he was like, "You're going to be successful or not. Either way, you're not coming back here."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe in my son enough to let him know that he doesn't have a safety net
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to be a safety net. I didn't have a safety net. It worked out just fine for me. Like, you're going to go stand on your own 2 feet. Go ahead. He's like, I don't understand why parents don't do that for their kids. I was like, you know what? That's a really interesting way of looking at it.
You're not hurting them. Like you're not, especially if like, so like it's different. Like it's if you're coming from that background where your parent they're instilling principles in you for you to be self-reliant,
Mm-hmm.
then there's no, like you said, he has no worry that he's going to go out and be great versus, you know, you've been coddling you're coddling your 17-year-old and like I'm gonna miss you, I don't want you to leave and whatnot.
Come back
um
anytime.
yeah, it's going to be hard. they're gonna struggle hard. And there's a safety net there for them. You're gonna take it. So I think that Sushi Chef has it like right, like since however, whenever he started teaching, his son these principles, he's ingrained it in him, like whatever you decide to do, you're gonna do it well, you're gonna do it as great as you can do it,
Yep.
damn near perfect. And you're gonna make sure you're good, because you got to take care of number one before you can do anything else. Like you get 18 years of that, by the time you're ready to go, you should be pretty good, set and ready to go. So yeah, and that's why I said like a lot of the problems from like my generation and a lot of problems I have from my generation, it's coming from like parenting, like it's coming from like generational styles of parenting. Like,
yeah,
I feel like the previous generation, like my parents, I feel like that's what I'm seeing more of, like, my generational peers growing up to be like. They're like these, like they need the nipples too, like they need it. They can't like my brother, like he has this problem with, not him personally, but his girlfriend, where she can't do it on her own. Like there's maybe a drive to do it, but just no concept of even where to start or how to be independent. And they have a child now, and that's sad. Like, okay, one, you're a kid and you got a kid, and then two, you don't know how to truly be independent, and like,
yeah,
you can't count on anybody. Like, you can't. I mean, like anybody, like your spouse, your child, your parents. At some point in time, they're going to fail you. They're going to disappoint you, whether it was intentional or unintentional. There's going to be a point in
whether
time.
they die accidentally or leave you, like one way or another, you could find yourself alone. And if you are not able to stand on your own 2 feet, you have no one to blame but yourself.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. And it sucks to see people in that situation and comfortably content with not evolving, I guess.
I mean, I guess I have to, if I'm being intellectually honest, being in the military for 20 years, knowing that I'm going to get a pension at the end of it, it honestly, it kind of feels a little bit like that. Like it feels a little bit like if I really believed in myself, I could just get out and start my own business and be successful. I saw Undercover Billionaire. I know how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me 90 days.
90 days, yeah. I'll be a millionaire. Yeah.
It's honestly, I think there are varying degrees of helplessness though, and I have a hard time empathizing with people who don't have a drive to improve themselves or their circumstances or the world around them in a meaningful way. Like it is hard to understand that perspective.
It is hard to understand it, and I've had many people in my life like that. So it's hard for me to empathize with them, but I sympathize for them. If that makes sense. Like,
what do you mean?
like I can't get why they complain about their situation, but they don't do anything to make it better. But I feel bad that they genuinely lack the skills or the principles in life to help make them better. And like so speaking like for people close to me, I try to help them, like guide them, like, hey, well, this is what you do. And usually that's like a battle. Usually it's not just me saying like, hey, oh, this is what you do. And then like, oh, okay. Usually it's not like that. It's usually like a battle. It's a back and forth. It's a trial and error.
How interested are you in improving those conversations?
Extremely interested.
If I could give you a couple of pointers on how to improve those conversations, how open would you be to that?
Completely.
So the two questions that I just asked you were open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
They were not yes/no questions, and they were not directive. So what you might consider doing is offering to them. Offer them your perspective. If they're genuinely interested in improving whatever their circumstances are, find out how interested they are. Find out what they would be willing to do. What would they be willing to give up?
Wow, yeah.
And don't get tied to the outcome. Like you may know the answer to their problem, avoid giving it.
Okay.
If somebody says, I can't figure out why I'm so depressed all the time. Like, I don't have a job. All my bills are taken care of. Like, well, obviously you need something to do with your time. Otherwise, of course you're depressed, right? Like the human mind needs to engage with something other than Netflix and TikTok all day.
Yeah,
to generate some sense of, but that's not the answer. Because as soon as I tell you what to do, you're going to be like, no. But if I respect your autonomy enough to find out what it is you do want to do, maybe there's a pathway forward there. But it definitely doesn't have to be a disagreement. It definitely doesn't have to be a fight. And as long as you're not tied to a specific outcome, like if what you decide is right for you is going to be completely different from what I decide is right for you.
That's a good point.
So like what do you think would make your life better now? Like what do you think could get you to where you want to go? What are the steps that you think you might take to start making that happen today? Where do you see it at the end of this week, right? Like there are ways to broach the topic to where you're not telling them, hey, this is what you do, but you just like you team up with them to help them solve their problem. That's
a great way to put it. Yeah. That is a great way to put it, because that's a problem I ran into. And another problem I ran into, which is, I mean, I'd call it like a phenomenon. Like, I don't know why it happens, but it's like, okay, I'm like one of the closest people to the individuals I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. And I'll say things like over and over, hey, whatever. And the moment they hear the same information from a complete stranger, it's like, ding, and they're like, oh, well, I wish I would have heard that before. And I'm like, what? I'm like, there's got to be like some kind of study on that. Like, what is that? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's so that is a common phenomenon. Like that happens to where there's something about the familiarity that you have with people that are close to you that you perceive. I think it's because you're closer to their flaws. You're closer to the people that you love, and you see all of the things that are wrong with them too. So when they try to tell you whatever it is, like, you're not hearing just good advice for what it is. You're also hearing like this incredibly flawed person saying, "What, to me? When you've got all this shit wrong with you?"
Mm.
It's something like that. I think it's something like I think highly enough of myself that the broken, horrible, ugly, flawed person that you are shouldn't be able to fix me or fix my problems. Like, I think that it's something like that.
Okay, I definitely, okay. Okay. I definitely see that. I definitely see where you're getting at. I don't know if that's applicable in my situation because whatever flaws they are identifying, it's not worse than theirs. Like they're in like situations where I'm like, yeah, I've never been there, but I can show you how to get out of it. So like I feel like you were hitting on it when you said there's just this something with the familiarity with like people close to you. It's like I almost feel like they're, I don't know, like because they do know me and they know how I move and everything. Um, I don't know, man. I really don't. I just don't see what separates me from a, a stranger. It's almost like when I say something, it's in their mind, but if another person says it, it like validates it. And then it's like, oh, he was telling the truth. And it's that's what I feel like it is. It's like this extra validation, like, oh, okay, sure, yeah. Um, and but what's weird is like you can go do that yourself. Like someone can tell you something, and you can just do some research on it. Be like, is this something I should do? Is this take the information, apply it to yourself? Oh, seems valid, or it seems like bullshit. Like you can do that.
There's also the element of intrinsic motivation. Like
Uh-huh.
if you are not motivated to solve the problem that you are vocalizing, like if you don't actually want a resolution, you're just going to keep complaining about it because that's actually what you want.
I I don't want to make like the wrong jokes on your podcast, but I feel like you like explain like women to me. Like I feel like that's most of what I get. Like it took me so long to like talking to my girlfriend to figure out that sometimes when she's presenting a problem to me, she doesn't want me to fix it. She's just talking to me. But to me, I'm like, she's like, hey, well, this is my problem. Immediately, I'm like, all right, well, this is what we can do. She's like, stop. And I'm like, see, I'm just telling you. And I'm like, so you don't want it to be fixed. So yeah, it's weird. That is really weird. Then like when you were talking, I was just thinking about like all the females in my life, and I'm like, yeah, that's my perception of women at least. Uh,
Having your feelings validated is very important. Like you you might use words like, I can't figure out how to fix this, but what you're trying to say is, I just want somebody to tell me I'm not crazy for feeling how I feel about this.
yeah, that's and I saw this Instagram. That is where I'm active on. I saw this Instagram reel, and it was this guy. He was like these guys talking to each other, and they were talking about this situation, like when your girl's talking to you, she's saying stuff, and you're like, okay, well, how do I fix it? And he's like, oh, you're wrong. Like, he's like, unless she's explicitly said, help me fix this. It's not what she's looking for. She's looking like for what you said, that validation, that like it's okay. It like you're not crazy. It's okay to feel this way. I understand what you're going through. Um, that's just so different. And especially like if you grew up, as a, I don't know how I want to say it, like a traditional guy, I guess, where like your feelings aren't validated. Like it just is what it is. Like, um, like growing up, if I felt a way towards something and I went to my dad about it, I didn't really there wasn't really a like, oh, okay, I'm sorry that you're angry or like whatever. It's more like, well, no, this is just what it is. Like, does that make sense? Am I explaining that right or effectively?
Doesn't sound like you got a lot of emotional validation from your father.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Daddy issues, definitely. But but yeah. So like not even like it was a new concept to me. Like I had to learn what that meant. Like I didn't understand. I'm talking like I'm just learning this like 2 years ago. So I didn't understand. I'm like still working on it. I didn't understand what it meant for someone to be like feeling a certain way, and then for someone to be like, it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
I thought you feel a certain. My understanding was like you feel a certain way, you keep that to yourself, and then you work on the issue, whatever it is, you just work on it regardless of how you feel. And I kind of still like think that way about certain things, but
That's an effective way to approach a lot of life. It really
it is. It is like I'm
Not
really
all.
like not all of life, yeah, not all of life. But like that's kind of like how I view, like I try to separate feelings from like a lot. Like I just kind of like okay, well, how I feel does it really apply? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
even like I'm sorry, what was that?
No, go ahead.
Even like love. Like I was so there's this Christian apologist. Um they call it apologetics. I'm not really sure what that means. But basically, like he goes to schools. His name is Dr. Turek, Dr. Frank Turek. He goes to schools and he has open discussions, conversations about Christianity from a different um, perspective than like how you would think it's mostly like like debate against intellectuals. Like he's coming from a more grounded perspective. And one of the things he was talking about was love. Like because like he'll have these open forums and like people come up to a mic and ask questions. Um, and someone was saying like, you know, when he's an older guy, he was like, what if someone doesn't feel the love that they felt for their significant other as they did before? And then Frank Turkey was like, are you married? And then the guy was like, yeah. Then he was like, well, you should know that when you did your vows, you didn't vow feelings. And then he was like, when you do your vows, you're not saying I will feel love for you and till the end. He was like, well, you're vowing is actions. He was like, nobody can say I will feel a certain feeling for the eternity of my for my lifespan. Like, it's just not gonna happen. He was like, what you are saying is that, through whatever, thick and thin, I will be there for you. He was like, that's love. Like, that's love. Whether you feel hatred in your heart, whether you love them, sort of, or a lot, if you're there for them, caring for them, and not neglecting them, he's like, that's love. Because he was saying, and tying it back to like Christianity, he was like, God hates sin. He doesn't like that we do it. Doesn't make him happy, but yet he sent his only son to die. He's like, it's like totally separate from a feeling and like what you're doing. Like it doesn't necessarily have to go together. It can go together. You can feel intense love and act on that, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that like totally changed my perspective of like how I interact with the people I claim to love. And it's made me become more self-aware of my feelings when I'm like upset or angry, or I feel like, some animosity. And I'm like, okay, like I really don't like you right now, but sure, I'll do it, because I'm like, I love you. I do love you. Like I do, but even if I'm not feeling it, like that's my feeling isn't what I'm saying I'm giving to you. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
What's your perspective on that?
I have felt frustration, anger. Like, I don't think I've ever felt hatred towards my wife. Certainly hope not.
Yeah.
But you have the whole spectrum of human emotion, and to think that you're not going to experience every part of that spectrum in an unforeseen quantity throughout the course of a lifetime together is foolish, short-sighted to think. It's if you want to be married, if you know in your heart that your life is empty and less fulfilled without your partner in it, like, it doesn't matter if you always feel love for that person, because what you do is nurture them, take care of them so that they can do the same for you. Tell them what you need if you're not getting it. Like my wife is wonderful in that she's like, she wants to give me what I want in our marriage. She's like, do you want me to look a certain way? Tell me how you want me to dress. I'll dress that way. Like, I don't really have strong feelings one way or the other, but it's good to know. Right? There's some things I care a lot about and other things not so much.
Yeah.
but finding someone that complements your complexities and loves you for who you are and is willing to change with you, because you're not going to be the same person 5 years after you get married. You shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You sure as shit should hope you're not the same person 5 years later, because if so, you have not grown.
Yeah.
If you're not growing together, you can find yourself growing apart, but that's the communication piece. Like if I feel like my wife and I aren't communicating effectively, like that's something we need to talk about. Like what are we missing here? What am I missing? What are you missing?
Yeah. One of the things that me and my girlfriend that we kind of implemented we're trying to currently implement in our relationship until we become proficient at it is over communication. Because time after time again, what we've realized is that you said it earlier, like when we talk, there's filters, that we have our own filters. And so when we say something, it doesn't get to the person how we intended it to go. And so there's too many times where we're misinterpreting what the other person is trying to say. So we're like, we get into like a argument, and we're like, whoa, what? And so we're working on over communication, and it's helping. It's helping. What is your take?
There are a few common pitfalls that couples fall into when it comes to communication. There are a few. Mind reading, assuming you know what the other person is thinking, or assuming you know what they intend with what they're saying or what they're doing. That can get in the way of actual understanding, like objectively understanding what they intended. Because I think I heard something. It was like, what you say, maybe you don't want to assume that you know what the other person is talking about. If there is any, if I have any, like if my response to what my wife says to me is at odds with how it seems like she's delivered it, I know there's something that's not being communicated there, something that I'm feeling or interpreting from what she said, or something that, like, maybe she has said something and like I find it maybe like a little upsetting, and that's not something that she's picking up on. Like that happens. And so, like, if you feel a certain way about how somebody says something to you, that's something that, if you feel comfortable bringing it up with them, that can smooth out a lot of disagreements with no real challenge. Like it can be uncomfortable being vulnerable like that. It can be uncomfortable being honest and telling the truth about, like, hey, when you said that, like, it kind of hurt a little bit, to be honest. Like that doesn't feel good to admit, but it can be very helpful.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, your girlfriend is, like, intentionally misinterpreting things that you say, like if you're not dealing with the person, or the person's not dealing with you in good faith, that can be a real challenge. Like, it doesn't sound like that's the issue, but like I've had people in my family that will argue with me about things, and they're not actually interested in coming to a resolution. They're interested in, like, scoring points. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I know just not to talk to you about anything, because I'm not going to do that to somebody I love. Why would I accept that from somebody else?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you.
I had an ex-girlfriend who did that too, who like, if we were upset with each other about something, she would just say shit to be upsetting. Like things that she did not believe, but that she wanted to hurt me with. I'm like, I don't do that to you. Like,
Yeah.
why do you? Okay. Cool. So
Yeah.
like if you're dealing with your partner in good faith and they are not doing the same, like that is not a relationship I would stay in. The last thing I would say is like honesty above everything. Honesty. I've stayed in relationships years longer than I should have because I was not willing to be honest at like crucial junctures of them. No, of course I want to stay together.
Yeah.
I'm not saying and that might not apply to you, but honesty about what you're thinking, about how you're interpreting your loved one's actions, their behaviors. Honesty, 100%. Because if you're putting on stuff, you're if you're putting up with stuff that you don't like, you're just making yourself a martyr and suffering, and you're going to grow to resent the person.
That's a good point. Yep.
If they're doing the same, you're at some point you're going to get blindsided because they're going to go fuck a bunch of other people, and you're going to be like, "What happened?" Like, well, I was unhappy for a long time, and I've sort of been past it for a long time, and well, here we are. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, honesty.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's easy to say, but it's harder in practice for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I think I'm going to wrap up here. Get ready to get some food in my stomach.
This was cool.
I know, right? I knew we were going to have a good conversation. Next time we need to get Sergeant Weidler looped into this. This would be have like, oh man, I could just imagine that'd be a great conversation. But yeah, I'm glad we talked. I knew we were gonna have a good combo. Hopefully we can like continue. I want to like keep this going even after I go, because I'm gonna like have my own setup when I get back home and stuff.
For sure.
We should definitely keep in contact.
This is the second one of these I've done today.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, my buddy back in Louisiana. He and I do it every Monday.
Right. Yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah, this is great. This is like my passion, like beyond anything else. I love talking to people, getting different perspectives, hearing different things, especially people that have more life experience, more wisdom than I do. Feel like that's an attribute that's devalued in my generation, but I think that's a very valuable attribute. Like someone who has life experience, the wisdom, because I feel like that's the entire point. You get this, and you share it, you pass it, like, hey, this is what I find out. Here you go. Like I was doing with the authorized user thing. Like you get this knowledge, you get this stuff, and like it does nothing to keep it up here. Like just get it out there. Just get it all out there.
Worth a lot less if you keep it to yourself.
Yeah, worth a lot. It's worth nothing. So yeah, that's kind of my take on why I want to do podcasts and stuff like that.
Sounds good. All right. Hey, I will share the video link with you so you can do whatever you want with it.
Okay.
And yeah, I will see you tomorrow.
All right. Hey, thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right.